In the late 20th century, the island nation of Sri Lanka was a landscape of profound change and turmoil. It was a time when deep-seated social, economic, and ethnic tensions gave rise to two of the most significant internal movements in its modern history. In the south, a wave of revolutionary sentiment took hold, embodied by the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, or JVP. Simultaneously, in the north, a powerful call for self-determination and cultural identity grew, culminating in the formation of the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, or LTTE. Though they operated at opposite ends of the island and were driven by distinct ideologies, both movements drew their strength from the same wellspring of discontent. They were born from a shared sense of marginalization and a deep-seated desire for a different future. This documentary delves into the complex histories of the JVP and the LTTE, exploring their origins, their methods, and the lasting impact they left on the nation. This is the story of two movements, two ideologies, and one island shaped forever by their struggle. To understand these movements, we must travel back to the fertile ground of social and political upheaval from which they emerged. The JVP, which translates to the People's Liberation Front, began its journey in the late 1960s. It was fundamentally a leftist youth movement, deeply inspired by socialist and Marxist-Leninist ideals. Its ranks were filled with educated but unemployed or underemployed youth from rural, predominantly Sinhala communities. They were frustrated by a post-colonial system that they felt had failed to deliver economic justice and social mobility. The JVP's ideology was rooted in class struggle, aiming to overthrow the existing political order and establish a socialist state. Their narrative was one of economic frustration and a call for a radical redistribution of power. In contrast, the LTTE's origins lie in the growing ethnic tensions between the majority Sinhalese and the minority Tamil populations. The movement officially formed in the mid-1970s, but its roots go deeper, tracing back to decades of perceived discrimination against Tamils in education, employment, and language policies. The LTTE championed the cause of Tamil nationalism, advocating for an independent state, Tamil Eelam, in the north and east of Sri Lanka. Their ideology was one of national liberation and self-determination, born from a feeling that their cultural and political rights could not be secured within a unitary Sri Lankan state. Though they came from different worlds, both movements were a direct response to deep-seated inequality, each choosing a dramatically different path to address it. The fuel for any movement is its people. For both the JVP and the LTTE, the recruitment of passionate and dedicated followers was key to their growth and influence. The JVP found a receptive audience among university students and rural youth who felt left behind by the country's economic policies. Through clandestine study groups, public lectures, and the distribution of political literature, they spread their message of revolution. They spoke to the anxieties of a generation grappling with high unemployment and a rigid class structure. For many young people in the South, joining the JVP felt like an act of empowerment, a way to fight for a more equitable society and reclaim their future from a system they believed was corrupt and unjust. In the northern and eastern provinces, the LTTE's support base was built on a foundation of shared ethnic identity and a collective sense of grievance. Recruitment was often a community-driven process, with families and villages providing the initial network of support. The LTTE's narrative resonated deeply with a Tamil population that felt systematically marginalized by state policies. They positioned themselves as the sole protectors of the Tamil people, offering a sense of security, purpose, and justice. Young men and women, seeing limited opportunities and facing increasing insecurity, were drawn to the LTTE's promise of liberation and dignity. In both the South and the North, it was a profound sense of frustration and a yearning for change that pushed thousands of young Sri Lankans to join these powerful and opposing forces. As these movements gained momentum, their methods and strategies evolved, leading the nation down a path of prolonged conflict and instability. Both the JVP and the LTTE employed tactics of armed resistance against the state, but their approaches were distinct. The JVP launched two major insurrections, one in 1971 and another in the late 1980s. These were characterized by surprise attacks on police stations, political assassinations, and widespread civil disobedience campaigns aimed at destabilizing the government. Their strategy was to create chaos and seize power through a swift popular uprising. The LTTE, on the other hand, evolved into a highly organized and disciplined quasi-military force. They engaged in a long-term conventional and unconventional war with the Sri Lankan armed forces. Their strategies included guerrilla tactics, large-scale battles, and the establishment of a de facto administrative system in the territories they controlled. The confrontations between these movements and the state plunged the country into a state of emergency for decades. Daily life was marked by curfews, checkpoints, and a pervasive sense of fear. The national economy suffered, and the social fabric was torn apart as the conflicts intensified, leaving scars that would last for generations. The headlines of the era were filled with news of unrest, and the nation's progress was held hostage by the escalating violence. At the heart of these two formidable movements were two charismatic and uncompromising leaders, Rohana Wijeweera of the JVP and Velupillai Prabhakaran of the LTTE. Their leadership styles, while different, were instrumental in shaping the trajectories of their respective organizations. Rohana Wijeweera was an intellectual and a revolutionary thinker. Educated in the Soviet Union, he was a powerful orator who captivated his followers with his vision of a socialist Sri Lanka. He built the JVP around a clandestine, cell-based structure, emphasizing ideological purity and loyalty. Wijeweera was the political and spiritual guide of his movement, directing its strategy from the shadows and inspiring a generation to take up arms for his cause. In stark contrast, Velupillai Prabhakaran was a reclusive and disciplined military strategist. He led the LTTE with absolute authority, demanding unwavering loyalty and enforcing strict military control. Under his command, the LTTE grew from a small guerrilla group into one of the world's most sophisticated non-state armed forces, complete with its own naval and air wings. Prabhakaran cultivated a powerful cult of personality, viewed by his followers as a national liberator and the supreme leader of the Tamil people. While Wijeweera's leadership was ideological, Prabhakaran's was militaristic. Both men built powerful hierarchical structures that enabled them to sustain their movements for years, but their ultimate missions and the legacies they left behind were vastly different. The decades of conflict instigated by the JVP and the LTTE had a profound and devastating impact on Sri Lankan society. The loss of life was immense, with civilians often caught in the crossfire. Families were torn apart, communities were displaced, and an entire generation grew up under the shadow of violence and uncertainty. The economic consequences were equally severe. The constant state of unrest deterred foreign investment, crippled the tourism industry, and diverted vast national resources toward military spending, slowing the nation's overall development. Beyond the physical destruction and economic setbacks, the conflicts left deep psychological wounds. Trust between communities was shattered, and a culture of suspicion and fear became ingrained in society. The insurrections and the long civil war affected every aspect of life, from education and health care to the simple freedom of movement. Yet, even in the darkest of times, the resilience of the Sri Lankan people shone through. In the aftermath of the violence, we have witnessed incredible stories of rebuilding, of communities coming together to heal, and of a collective desire to move forward. Today, Sri Lanka continues the difficult but essential work of reconciliation, grappling with the legacy of these struggles as it strives to build a united and peaceful future for all its citizens. The journey through decades of turmoil eventually reached its conclusion. By the end of the 1980s, the second JVP insurrection was decisively suppressed by the state, leading to the capture and death of its leadership, including Rohana Wijeweera. The movement was politically neutralized, though it would later re-emerge as a legitimate political party participating in the democratic process. The end of the LTTE's struggle came 2 decades later. After nearly 30 years of civil war, a final large-scale military offensive by the Sri Lankan government in 2009 led to the complete defeat of the LTTE and the death of Velupillai Prabhakaran. The end of these conflicts marked a pivotal moment in Sri Lankan history. For the first time in a generation, the sounds of war fell silent across the island. What remained were the crucial and often painful lessons learned from the past. The history of the JVP and the LTTE serves as a stark reminder of how social inequality, political marginalization, and ethnic division can lead to devastating consequences. The end of the conflicts brought not just relief, but also a profound opportunity for reflection on the importance of unity, the value of democracy, and the absolute necessity of building a lasting and inclusive peace. As Sri Lanka looks to the future, the lush landscapes, serene mountains, and tranquil coastlines stand as a testament to the island's enduring beauty and spirit of resilience. The sun rises on a nation that is healing, a people who are rebuilding, and a future that holds the promise of peace. History is not merely a record of the past, it is our greatest teacher. It shows us the paths to avoid and illuminates the way forward. By understanding the complex forces that shaped these movements, we can better equip ourselves to prevent such tragedies from ever happening again. The story of Sri Lanka is a powerful lesson in the human cost of conflict and the enduring power of hope. Thank you for joining us on this journey through a critical chapter of Sri Lankan history. If you believe in the importance of learning from the past to build a better future, please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that matter.